Hey, what's happening, everybody? Frag here. Today we're going to be making buttermilk pancakes. First, thank you everybody to support the Patreon to make this Cooking with Frag episode possible. Thank you all for your votes for voting for buttermilk pancakes, one of my favorite breakfasts. I very rarely am up in time to eat breakfast, but I do often do breakfast for dinner, and buttermilk pancakes are pretty top-notch. So let's hop right in. I'm going to head over to the cutting board here. We're going to cut some fresh fruit and talk about the preparation of buttermilk pancakes. The idea for pancakes is to make them as fluffy as possible. A couple tricks for that is make sure that you don't overmix the batter, and another trick is to have your stuff be closer to room temperature. This does not mean leave your milk out overnight, but if you measure your wet ingredients about an hour ahead of time, let them sit on the counter, you'll have a fluffier pancake. You also want to cook your pancake batter very close to the mixing time. Okay, so first things, I have my milk and buttermilk here. If you do exclaim recipe in the chat, it'll bring up the recipe. It's also found on the Patreon page for anybody to view. It'll be posted on the description of this video as well. So for our dry ingredients, we have flour, sugar, baking powder, baking soda, salt. For wet ingredients, we have buttermilk, milk, eggs, and melted butter. So I have my milk and buttermilk right here. I have a couple eggs sitting out, which will crack in a little bit. I have some fresh fruit. Got blueberries, orange, and strawberry. So I'm just going to cut these up and get them on the plate. We'll do some fun stuff. Blueberries are absolutely amazing. Don't need to do anything to those. I'm going to make a little fan with the strawberries. Very simple to make a fan. Just cut long ways, not all the way through. Cut a little deep on that first cut, but that's A-okay. Have a nice, pretty little fan. I really do love pancakes. They're so delicious. And a nice fresh pancake's really hard to beat. The mixed stuff's all right, but fresh pancakes are ultra simple. All you have to do is mix the stuff together and throw it in a nice pan. Flip it once and it's done. All right, so we got some nice strawberry fans here. Now we're going to do some orange twist. So we're going to cut off the ends of the orange. Then we're going to start slicing down until we have a nice thin ring. The thinner the better on these, but you obviously want enough flesh on there that you're getting a bite of orange when you cut into it. So you can see about the thickness of that. It's enough that it's not falling apart, but still pliable. And all you have to do here is cut it halfway through, and then you got these fancy looking little things you can put on the plate. If you're looking to cook breakfast for somebody, this is definitely an easy way to go. That one's not going to quite work. Cut that one a little bit thin, but that's okay. Nothing's perfect. All right, we're going to put this aside for now. You can just cut that into wedges or juice it or do whatever you want with it. Give our cutting board a quick little wipe. Wipe down our knife. Now this is the last thing I need a knife for, so what I'm going to do before I put my knife away is steal it. Give it a little wipe down, and then we'll rinse it off and dry it at the end of the show. Okay, now we're going to get our dry ingredients together. As I stated before, you want to wait till the very last minute to mix in the wet ingredients before you're cooking. So, here we go. Got baking soda, baking powder, salt, and white flour. You know what, before I begin here, I'm going to get this fruit off my cutting board. So, take the plate that we're going to use. Set up these strawberry fans. Our orange twists. That one's a little floppy. That's okay. Then we got a nice little resting spot for our pancakes right in the middle. Cool. So I put these back over by the stove. Have a nice place to put our pancakes. Okay, now we can start on dry ingredients. So let's see here. We got 1 1/2 tablespoons sugar. There are 3 teaspoons and a tablespoon if you ever need to break down a measurement. Now, pancakes don't have to be super exact, but you can't do something like mix up the baking powder, baking soda. That'll cause a problem. This is flour. Sugar here. There's one. And we'll call this about a half. Looks good to me. 1 1/2 teaspoon baking powder. First time I made this recipe, I mixed up the baking powder, baking soda. That didn't work out so good. But mistakes happen. Okay, so we got 1 teaspoon here. And since this is kind of what helps it rise, we're going to be pretty exact with this. Sugar, you can kind of play around with this, not so much. So our 1/2 teaspoon, there we go. Now we're going to baking soda, 3/4 teaspoon baking soda. So, since we don't have a 3/4 teaspoon, we'll do 3 1/4. All right, 1/4 teaspoon salt. I guess it's going to overflow. We'll see. It's all going to come out at once. Just wait for it. Oh, nailed it. All right, there we go. There's our salt. And the last ingredient left is flour, which is 1 1/2 cups flour. It's going to make like about 5 medium-sized pancakes. There's 1, 2, 3 half cups for 1.5 cups of flour. Okay, this is very important now that we mix this stuff together. You want to mix as little as possible once you add the wet, but in order to make sure that you're mixing effectively, you want to make sure that your dry ingredients are mixed properly together. So we're going to give these a nice whisk, make sure all the sugar is broken down, that all our baking soda, baking powder is mixed into the flour really well. If you don't do this and you add your wet ingredients and barely mix it, you can end up getting a clump of baking soda or baking powder, and nobody wants that. Okay, just going to move some of this stuff over to the counter. Once again, give our cutting board a quick wipe down. We can reuse that whisk. Okay, now for our wet ingredients, which is buttermilk, milk, which we have right here, 2 eggs, and 3 tablespoons melted butter. I have my butter on the stove. I'm going to turn the stove back on real quick just to make sure it's you want it pretty hot, because if it's not hot enough, it hits something even slightly cold, it'll just seize up, and then you have a chunk of butter in there, which isn't the end of the world. Okay, little trick for eggs. When you're cracking eggs, yes, I could crack them right into the milk, but then I run the risk of getting shells, so we're going to crack them into this bowl first to make sure there's no shells. To get a clean break on an egg, it's actually better to hit it on a blunt surface than the side of something. Much less of a chance of getting eggshells that way. Doesn't have to be a flat surface, but something more blunt causes a bigger crack. You hit something on the edge, the membrane breaks, and a piece of shell is a lot more likely to go in there. All right, we're just going to break these up with the whisk a little bit. Crack the yolks, anywho. Put this into the milk and buttermilk mixture. And then we're just going to give it a little twisty here, get the yolks kind of broke up. Want to do this first because we want to mix less inside of the dry ingredients when we get there. Now, one of the most important things for pancakes, and don't be afraid, is that getting the temperature right on the pan. We're going to start preheating our pan now. We're going to go for a pretty solid medium heat. Well, that's high. We're going to go medium here. Not the end of the world if you're under or over on your temperature. You'll just have a more brown or a not as healthy looking pancake. The flavor should still be there. But you get that nice golden brown, it looks really nice and tastes great as well. Alright, I'm going to move my wet and dry ingredients over to the stove now. And we're just going to sit here and wait for our pan to heat up. Not quite there. I have my melted butter right here. We're going to wait to add that till the very last second. I'm going to pour this in right as I do the other wet ingredients so I can mix them together and stop the butter from seizing. Now, there's a couple of trains of thoughts when it comes to pancakes. There's people that want the big, huge flapjack and people that want the little tiny ones. There's benefits to both. The big, huge flapjack tends to be very fluffy in the middle. You get a really nice distribution and a nice raise on it. However, if you don't have a flat top or a griddle, it's really hard to flip that large pancake. You go too small, you run the risk of them overcooking because there's not enough mass. I like somewhere right in the middle. I think this is probably a 2 or 3 ounce ladle. Should say on there somewhere, probably doesn't. But find a nice ladle size or a nice container that you can measure your pancakes so you're getting something pretty consistent in size. Okay, we got a pretty hot pan here. Not burning hot, but pretty hot. Enough to mix our ingredients. I'm going to come back to the cutting board to do this so you guys can see how much to mix it. So we're on the same page. Okay. So we really don't need to mix much at all. We're going to pour our wet into our dry. Then we're going to pour our butter into that. And then we're going to mix just so it comes together. Just give it a quick whisk. Make sure you get around the edges. Get any flour clumps. One more quick whisk. That's it. That's it right there. It's okay if there's clumps of stuff because we mixed everything together beforehand. So we know all the dry ingredients are where they need to be. All this stuff to the sink and come over to our pan. Now, since I didn't have my pan preheating for a while, there's a chance that it will become too hot. But I'm willing to take that risk. Okay. You should not need to oil your pan for pancakes unless you don't have a no-stick surface or it's pitted or something. In that case, you may want a little butter or oil. I'd suggest butter. Okay, we're going to ladle the pancake in and give it a little swish around like this. For me, that's the perfect pancake size. If you can go double that and have a nice big flapjack, but I think this is going to work out pretty good. This is the hard part for pancakes. You got to wait. You got to wait. You can also make 3 mini pancakes in there if you want to. Maybe we'll try a couple different variations. What you're looking for on your pancake is for the edges to start being very bubbled. The idea is when you flip the pancake over, it doesn't splash out. If you flip it too soon, you will know. You'll either get batter on the side of your stove, or when it hits the pan, it just kind of splashes out. Once again, not the end of the world. Pancakes are a very forgiving food. They're going to taste very good no matter what you do. So don't be afraid to cook these. You're not going to burn your house down cooking pancakes. They're going to taste good. You can see all the nice air bubbles inside the dough here. You can also see those air bubbles inside the batter as well. That's what you want. That's why you mix it less, so there's more air bubbles. The more air bubbles, the more fluffy and delightful your pancake's going to be. As with so many things, patience is a big virtue in cooking. Now, if you want to cook a lot of pancakes, you can set up multiple pans, or you could make huge flapjacks at once, but it's not so bad. We're going to take a little peek here, just a little peek-see. So it's looking pretty blonde under there. Definitely not as brown as I'd like for how cooked it is, so I'm going to say my heat's probably a little low. We say once again, thank you to everybody that did support the Patreon and make Cooking with Frag possible. I'm really enjoying doing this series again. Got a new microphone, got new everything. I want to touch on scheduling real quick. We've been doing Cooking with Frag around 7 p.m. I live in the Pacific Northwest, and the days become extremely long. So we're going to have to push it to the end of the broadcast for the summer months. Probably, I guess, about 3 or 4 months would be it till it starts getting darker a bit earlier. But when it's not getting dark until 8 or 9 p.m., it makes setting up lighting and the cameras almost impossible. So for the next 3, 4, maybe 5 months, we're going to be doing Cooking with Frag at the end of the broadcast instead of the start, so that I can have a stable lighting environment. Okay, back to the pancake here. It's nice and bubbly now. Let's give it a shot. All right, nice and golden brown. Just beautiful. Turn my temp down just a little bit. That is just about perfect for color on the pancake. And you can see on the edges, it did not splatter out, which means that it was cooked enough before we flipped it. And oh man, just touching it, you can tell how light and fluffy it is. Let's talk about syrups real quick. Real maple syrup is one of those things that it costs a lot more than normal syrup, but if you can spring for it, it really elevates your pancakes to the next level. There's a huge difference between caramel colored corn syrup and real maple syrup. It is one of the few foods that I think is worth the price hike. You use so little of it, it has so much flavor. All right, there we go. So we got one pancake down. Next, we're going to try to make a couple small ones here. My dad used to always make me dinosaur eggs. That was my specialty. And over time, he learned how to make like a brachiosaurus. He'd make stegosauruses for me and all sorts of stuff. Mickey Mouses. Definitely, cooking pancakes is one of my first food memories. My dad used to always let me help out in the kitchen. I loved pancakes when I was a kid. Oh, I might even be able to get 4 here. We'll see. Pancakes will spread out a little bit after you cook them, so you got to be careful. If they do touch, not the end of the world. Well, it's definitely something you can do for your kids if you want to cook something easy and have fun with it. Kids have great imaginations, so you give them this and tell them it's a dinosaur egg. They'll believe you. Now, a smaller pancake is going to cook a little bit faster. You can already see the bubbling around the edges happening here. So that means they'll be able to ready to flip sooner. However, they will not retain the same amount of fluffiness the larger pancake does. After this one, we'll do a very large flapjack, and I'll show you what I'm talking about with the fluffiness. Though this size pancake, for me, is spot on. One thing to be aware of, too, when you're cooking on any pan is that the flame is not distributed equally. A little bit different on an electric stove, but for this, more heat's going to be in that ring where the flame's hitting the pan. The nicer your pan is, the better it should be at distributing heat, but no matter how good your pan is, some areas in the pan are going to be hotter than others. You can see these two are within a fraction of touching because they spread out. That's okay. Oh, the waiting kills me. Okay, here's what we're going to do. We're going to try flipping this one. It's going to be early. It's going to be an early flip. Or not. Look at me go. So my pan's a little bit hot right now. That's okay, too. You done goofed. All right, well, we got there. As I said, pancakes are pretty forgiving. You see what I did here? I moved the pancake after the fact, and it spread out to the side. But that doesn't mess up the pancake. It just makes it not look as good. Nice, fluffy center. Not too shabby. So after this, we'll cook one big flapjack, and then we'll be done cooking pancakes. I was pretty excited this pancake episode got voted in. I freaking love me some pancakes. All right. In general, they're about 2/3 cooked when you flip them, so you don't have to wait as long on the other side. All right, now we're going to try one big flapjack. We're going to go 2 ladles. If you're going to do a big one, ladle into the exact same spot and then spread it out with your ladle rather than try and do it the other way around. Go like that. Like you're making, putting sauce on a pizza or something. You can hear the sizzle. We're going to turn down our flame a smidge. The struggle becomes on a big one if your pan's not the perfect temperature. When you flip it, it makes a mess. That's really the only risk that's going to happen, but you're going to have a really amazing fluffy cake in the middle. Now, if you're just cooking pancakes for yourself, I'd almost suggest doing it this way, because you can make a really big pancake and get it while it's still hot and fresh and all the air has not steamed out of the pancake. The waiting is just, it's so hard. Move this over here for now. Just going to clean up a few of my utensils, get them in the sink while we're waiting. Never a bad idea to clean as you go. Usually have a tub with stuff able to soak in it as I'm cooking. That way all your dishes are one place. If you get a minute, you can start a few dishes. If not, it happens. The cutting board, a quick wipe down. And back to the stove. Pancakes being they don't stick to the pan very much, it's really easy to... there's nothing wrong with lifting the side of the pancake up and going, you know, is it there yet? Taking a look, seeing if it's golden brown or not. Mine's not quite there. I would say for a beginner cook, pancakes are a really great place to start. Use a couple very important techniques in pancakes. One's flipping stuff in a pan. The other is pan temperature, since it's very sensitive. And even though pan temperature is important, it's really hard to mess up. Too hot, it's a little more brown. Not hot enough, it looks a little emaciated. But it's not going to ruin the food. Oh man, I want to flip it so bad. See, it's too early. You can tell. It's rolling around the pan here. You can see the batter. It's not ready. We're going to flip it anyways, so I can show you. So if you try to flip your pancake too early, that's what happens. Now, the brownness looks nice, but it's splashed out the side. If you're not prepared for that, a lot of times what happens when you go to do the flipping motion, it flings out of the pan onto your stove. And pancake batter when it's not cooked is really hard to clean up. When it is cooked, super easy. Actually just about perfect for browning other than the splatter that came out the other side. This is pretty easy to fix. You can just cut it off like this and pull it to the side. Just like it never happened. Alright, so since we flipped it earlier, it's going to take a little longer to cook on the other side. As I said before, usually about 2/3 when you flip it. That was really only about half. It's pretty hard to undercook a pancake, but if you do it, you'll know. You'll know. All right, we're going to say that is light and fluffy enough. All right, I'm just going to bring the finished product over to the cutting board here and show you guys what we did using the smaller pancakes since we set up our fruit the other way. So that is it. Buttermilk pancakes with fresh fruit. A solid breakfast any day of the year. Thank you, everybody, for watching. I do appreciate it. It's been a wonderful show. I look forward to doing it again next month. The poll, if you are a $10 or more on the Patreon tier, is posted on the Patreon page. The recipe will be posted below the video, as well as it's posted on the Patreon page if you do want to find it. Thank you all for watching. Be back live with some video gaming content in about 10 minutes. Y'all are lovely. Frag out. Going to hop back on Mike here real quick to answer a question that was asked. If you wanted to add fresh fruit to your pancakes, you would do so like when you're adding the butter. Right at the last moment, you're going to fold those in. If you're using something like a blueberry that is maybe towards the end of its lifetime, you may want to take a spat and fold it in after the wet and dry is there. But also, if you want to toss your fruit in just a small bit of flour, it'll keep them from all sinking from the bottom. If you're making your batter a little bit ahead of time, that will be a helpful tip, but definitely right towards the end for any fresh fruit in the pancake.